Ed here, back at the bench. Giving an update on the Pro Modeler B-24D lid. Done a little pre-painting on her. Nice and even. I'm doing some pre-painting, some washes, and still have some more yet to go, but these are the primaries. Of course, all this will be sealed up inside. Did some pre-painting here, there. Started work on the front landing gear. Front fender and wheel. Haven't painted the wheel yet. Ed here. Quick update on the B-24. Yeah, I've been working on it. Primarily pre-painting parts. So was able to do a little work on this bird finally. I'll see if I can get this thing to be able to see it here. As much as able to do. On the cockpit here. And now seat straps are tape, medical tape. Won't be able to see the PE buckles because the crew will be sitting on top of them. So I wasn't able to put all the buckles in despite me having one of these and on the full power. Anyway, I just wasn't able to see enough to put all the M buckles and stuff in. So I just kind of left it at these, put on the seat belts, put on the shoulder straps, because you'll be able to see the back of the shoulder straps here. Here and here. And the sides of the seat belts, I went ahead and left them in with the PE on them. Especially on the inners where you can see them. So anyway, we got the seats in. Got the straps in. Those straps really threw me for a booger back of the seats too. I know you'll never see it. I cleaned up some injection molding spots that were on all four of these corners up here. I carved those down. I know you'll never see them, but I'll know that I did that. So that's ready to go in, get sealed up. After I drop the crew figures in on the seats, I've got the bombardier, pilot, and co-pilot. So that'll be, the bombardier will be sitting on the little seat up front here. So the gear for that. And thought you'd like to see what I've got done. Went ahead and painted the knobs here yeller, just so they'd stand out. I know they're gray. I've been in the last two flying ones of these. Working on the bombs. So let's see if we can see them. 3 decals on each, plus the yellow stripe. 2 different size bombs there. I have 6 in the forward bomb bays, 3 on each side. Let's see, what are those? The 500 pounders, or 3 of them, and then the 1,000 pounder, 2 of them in the rear bay. I'll just have these set in here for now. There's a 1,000 pounder. Set in the aft bay. I don't know if you can see this too well. The photo etch fuses, at least on a couple of bombs. Couldn't do them on all because my eyes and allergies and everything just aren't there right now. Anyway, just about have them on one side here. So. Alright, that's about as far as I've gotten so far. I was gonna do a little reading out of this. Give you a little history of the bird I'm doing. Teggy Ann. This magazine is not around anymore. I do have it scanned in and gave people links to it already. I'm going to read this a bit to hell and back. By Martin W. Bowman. Let's see. Do a little reading here. Keep an eye on the time. The Polotsi is situated on the Romanian plains 50 miles north of Bucharest, just over 50 years ago. Now this is dated winter of 1996, so Plötzlich was the greatest single source of fuel for the German war machine in all Europe. A tiny USAAF force of 23 consolidated B-24s, originally en route to China to bomb Tokyo from the Chinese mainland, was sent to bomb the refineries on 12 June 1942. Although it was a small beginning, 13 American heavy bombers did bomb the European target for the first time. In April 1943, bomber chiefs in London pressed the theater commander, General Lewis, excuse me if I tear this up, Brereton, for another attack. Early in June, he was informed that 8th Air Force B-24D Liberator groups in the 201st Provisional Wing from England would join his 98th and 376 BG's battle groups for a second low-level attack on Plötzlich. A B-17 flying fortresses were ruled out because they did not possess the required low-level range. Ground crews removed northern bomb sites and replaced them with low-level sites, and replaced heavier nose armament and additional fuel tanks in the bomb bays to increase the Liberator's fuel capacity to 3,100 gallons. Were installed in the B-24Ds to make the trip to the target, some 1,350 miles, and back again. In East Anglia, the 44th Flying 8-Balls, the 93rd Traveling Circus, and the 389th Scorpions began flying low-level practice mission at less than 150 feet. All three groups have been trained in the art of high-altitude precision bombing and were quite unused to the low-level flying. The 389th, which only arrived in Norfolk in mid-June, lost a B-24 in a mid-air collision on 25 June. On 30 June, 124 Liberators flew to bases at Benghazi, Libya, for Operation Statesman. On 5 July, Liberators took off on their first of 10 missions in support of the Italian campaign. Most were flown without escorts, and the losses were heavy. The rush of missions meant that some crews quickly racked up enough to complete their tour. Bill Cameron, the pilot of Buzz and Bear and the 44th Bomb Group, recalls, after missions to Messina, Catania, Foggia, and Naples, I completed my required 25 in a borrowed ship, the Susie Q, over Rome in 19 Italy. It occurred to me that I was not really expected to fly this low-level mission, whatever the target was, but I was swept up in the preparation for it primarily out of loyalty to my crew, and perhaps some curiosity at what that caused me to want to see it through. We plunged into low-level formation practice over the dry Libyan desert for almost 2 weeks. Eventually, the groups became larger, and as the training progressed towards a full dress rehearsal involving the total force of B-24 Liberator bombers. On 6 July, Barrington was told his 5 group commanders that a low-level daylight attack would be made on Plotzy to achieve maximum surprise and ensure the heaviest possible damage in the first attack. On 20 July, the 5 groups began 12 days training for Tidal Wave, the code name for Plotzy, with practice flights against a mock-up target in the desert. Bill Cameron recalls, everything would depend upon surprise and exact timing. It was explained that the first defenses were relatively light, and we would not have to concern ourselves about the Romanian anti-aircraft because Sunday was a day of rest for Romanians, even in time of war. I'm going to hold up here since I'm running close on time. We'll continue with the next one. Got the Bombay finished. Both sides. Here, get the racks in. Got the windows in here and here. Do put those in first, because these pieces here kind of overlap that window and makes it hard to put in. Anyway, that's about all I've got done. Those windows, I did take my pin vise and a number 78 drill bit, and I drilled 4 little holes in each of the wings. Since I'm using white glue, I wanted the white glue to go down into the little holes to hold those in. I'm tired of pushing those out every time I pick up a model. And back to the article. And speaking of such, before I get back into it, we've lost another World War II veteran all this week of major consequence, and we feel your loss. Our condolences go out. But life does continue, as does the monarchies. Okay, we're going to continue where we left off here with this article by Martin W. Bowman. Left off here. It says, Bill Dabney, Cameron's co-pilot, recalls some of the edge was removed from this optimism by General Louis E. Barrington, who addressed us all in an open-air meeting in the African sunshine. This is a dangerous mission, but we feel that if the refineries are demolished and the entire force wiped out, it will still be worth the price. It was barely daylight the following morning, 1 August, when the Liberators took off. First underway was the 376 Bomb Group. The Liberators, with 29 B-24Ds, led by the CO, Colonel Keith Compton, with Brigadier General Urizel G. Ent, CO Bomber Command, and the command ship Tegian, which is the model that I'm doing here. Behind came the 36 B-24s of the 93rd Bomb Group, led by Colonel Addison Baker and Major John Jerstead in Hell's Winch. They were followed by 48 B-24s of the 98th Bomb Group formation, led by Colonel John R. Killer Kane in Hale, Columbia. Next came 37 B-24s of the 44th Bomb Group, led by Lieutenant Colonel Leon Johnson. Last to take off were the 26 B-24s of the 389th Bomb Group, led by Colonel Jack Wood and Major Kenneth Fearless Caldwell's Liberator. Kickapoo had an engine failure on takeoff and crash. Nearing landfall at the German-occupied island of Corfu, Wongo Wongo of the 376 went out of control and plunged into the sea. Bill Dabney noted, "The gods just didn't seem to be with us. So many bad breaks so early in the game was pretty disheartening." As the 5-mile-long formation headed for Corfu, the inevitable malfunctions reduced the numbers, and 10 B-24s aborted. After Corfu, crews veered right to the east and headed overland to Polotsi. At the Greek border, commanders were confronted with the Pindius Range rising to the height of 11,000 feet. The horizon was blotted out with cumulus clouds towering to 17,000 feet, and a decision had to be made whether to continue as briefed and risk collision or climb above them. Bill Cameron observed, "I felt a foreboding of trouble for the first time." Compton elected to climb above the cloud tops to save fuel and time, and the 93rd followed him. Killer Kane, whose group was following the 376, had his mind made up for him. Many of the Parameter's aircraft were not equipped with oxygen for this low-level mission. So the 98 circled and entered the cloud in threes, and after the range, repeated the maneuver before setting course again. Bill Cameron continues, "The lead groups continued on course to Polotsi while we lost time searching for the route through the clouds. It would not be a coordinated attack. From the time that we would be alone with the pink-colored airplanes of the 98th, some minutes later we were clearing the clouds with only the aircraft of the 98th in sight ahead of us. Our own 44th was coming along in good shape, even with this combined force of some 70 bombers. It felt very lonely. Mazeworski looked in vain for the 389th behind us. Nothing. I think we all have felt threatened now, and that the formation began to tighten up. We began our slow descent that would eventually take us below the treetops in the vicinity of Polotsi. I didn't know how our timing was, and it couldn't matter how much, since we were obviously separated from the two groups in the lead. The 98th formation was still stretched out in front of us, and the 389th now appeared behind us and very high. We were down about 3,000 feet as we crossed the Danube and had a very clear view of the Romanian countryside. We didn't know it then, but the two lead groups were some 60 miles ahead of us, and they had reached the first checkpoint on time, but turned on the second checkpoint and streaked on the correct course, but for the wrong target. Due to a navigational error, the Liberados had turned south too soon at Targoviste instead of the correct IP at Floreste. The 93rd followed nearing Polotsi. Compton and Ett appeared to take the 376 over the refineries alone. They overtook Brewery Wagon and nosed Teguian into the lead slot. Brewery Wagon was shot down soon after. The error led to the 93rd subsequent tactical mistake in bombing the 98th and the 44th targets and caused approximately 20 ineffective 376 sorties. The Liberados saw the 93rd already desperately fighting its way through to the target area and had split to attack targets of opportunity instead. As the 376 passed Polotsi and began climbing up to the foothills east of the city, they saw the paramedics coming in towards them. The plan was in ruins. The 93rd had followed Compton's force, trailed over Polotsi. Baker and Gersted turned Hell's Winch 90 degrees left and headed for the smokestacks of Polotsi. Ramsey Potts and the Duchess and the second formation of 93rd B-24s followed. The flak batteries enveloped the flying circus with their fire, and at only 20 foot, they were nearing targets. During a 5-minute bomb run, the group was torn to shreds. Hell's Winch was hit and caught fire. Baker jettisoned his bombs, but he and Gersted decided to continue to the target. At Polotsi, Hell's Winch was enveloped in flames and surged up to 300 feet before falling back and crashing to the ground. Both pilots were awarded posthumous medals of honor for their sacrifice. Captain Walter Stewart, the deputy leader in Utah Man, took over the 93rd lead, and despite severe damage to the bomber, managed to land again in Libya 14 hours later. 9 93rd B-24s were lost over the target, and 2 collided in a cloud. 2 more were interned in Turkey. Meanwhile, the 98th and the 44th crossed Polotsi from the northwest. The paramedics suffered highest casualties from all 5 groups, losing 21 of the 38 B-24s that started out from North Africa. At least 9 were destroyed by the blast from delayed action bombs dropped by the 376th. The 8 balls arrived at Polotsi at 15:15 hours. Bill Cameron recalls. We were keenly aware of the smoke and the flame that was now becoming visible in the target area. We could begin to guess what was happening, but we did not know that those huge fires came from the very targets that we had been assigned to attack at near ground level. With the aircraft of the 98 stretched out before us, we had passed Polotsi and Targoviste and were nearing the turning point at Floretse. As Floretse came in view, with our altitude approximately 1,500 feet, things began to get very busy. By now it was clear that our target had already been bombed and was in flames. What followed was probably the most action-packed 30 minutes of my life. I'm going to stop here because of the time. I'm sorry, but as you see, this early point in the war is just turning all bad for these poor people. Take you down to it here. This bulkhead is dry fit in here. It's not set in yet, but I have put that bulkhead in. Got the ammo boxes up here for the waist gunners. Bombay still down on both sides. Oh, got the rear turret done. One of the barrels on the 50 cals was kind of wonky, but no, you can't see it. And got the photo etched gun sight hiding in there. Glare it right out. Yeah, there you go, guy. Oh, been working on the crew. Get up there. Working on the crew. And got his back half on. His back half on. This guy's still 4 pieces. Co-pilot's up here. Pilot's over here. So he's ready to go in the seat. And that's pretty much as far as I've gotten on her. But still getting back to this wonderful article by Martin W. Bowman here in the Second World War magazine. See if we can pick up where I left off here. Okay. Let's see, the long gaggle of pink-colored 98th B-24s began a wide descending turn to the right, and there we were, turning on the bomb run to the target labeled White 5, the Columbia Aguila refinery. Colonel Leon Johnson and Bill Brandon and the Susie Q turned their 3-ship element inside the 98th, and altogether some 50 bombers began to drop rapidly to their assigned bombing altitudes, flying parallel to the railroad on our right, which led directly to our target. And there's railroad on their right. Okay. As we made the turn, we pulled our as we made the turn, we pulled our 6-ship flight into position directly behind Susie Q, and the remaining 7 bombers fell in line behind us. The 16 44th bombers in all. The last element numbered 4 liberators instead of 3 because Bob Bilber and in the spare B-24 refused to go home, and he stayed with us all the way. The remaining 21 bombers from our group, led by Colonel Jim Posey, split off at this point to attack the Brazil refinery, blue target, 5 miles to the south of Polutsi. As we approached the target area, several B-24s were coming in straight for us from our left. But there was no time then to try to figure this one out. It was just one of several unexpected happenings that had to be expected. Later we learned that these were the liberators of the 93rd and the 376. Some of these aircraft had unfortunately dropped their bombs a few minutes earlier on the very targets we were now rapidly approaching. As we raced toward Columbia, Augilia, leveling off at a bombing altitude of 250 feet, my eyes were glued on the Susie Q. Her target would be almost exactly in line with the spot where our own bombs were programmed to go. We were expected to place our load into a low-profile building some 210 feet wide and 600 foot long. We were edging toward a train rolling side by side with us along the tracks to our right. It appeared to be exceptionally well equipped with anti-aircraft weapons of all calibers. By this time it seemed that almost all of our own 50 caliber machine guns were in action, and judging by the excited chatter on the intercom, they were directed toward the train. The sky was becoming unusually crowded with pink aircraft sliding in on us from our left. Perhaps no moment of the entire episode worried me more than did the chilling knowledge that we were suddenly sandwiched between two bombers, one directly above us and one below. I could not have lifted either wing during these few seconds without bringing sure destruction onto the three of us. Even now I can visualize the rivets of the bomber above us, which I could see all too clearly. I could occasionally glimpse the bomber below, but could only concern myself with the one above. Miraculously, both of our larger neighbors slid away from us. We were now heading towards a point where the railroad disappeared into a great mass of smoke and flame, the Columbia Augilia refinery. It seemed to me that the bombers were converging toward one small area that was free of flame and explosions. And then the Susie Q disappeared into that smoke, and we were right behind. Below me in the nose section, I could hear DeVinny and Clifford frantically trying to pinpoint our target. Then we were in the smoke, and then out of it. If you've ever flown an airplane through a lone, fleecy white cloud, you will remember how suddenly you pop out on its far side. Just as abruptly, I pushed hard on the control column and headed for the ground. All in a split second, and I am sure our near spontaneous action saved our lives. Staring up with us were numerous shirtless anti-aircraft gunners in gun emplacements with long black barrels pointing directly at us. We leveled and began to turn out to the right. It may be that skidding turn threw the gunners off, but whatever the reason, we escaped destruction. Unable to find our building in the smoke, augmented by smoke pots, flame, exploding tanks, and general confusion of that instant, our bombs were held too long. I can only hope that they fell in an area that contributed to the general destruction of our target complex. Few, if any, aircraft came off that target lower than we did. At least, at that moment, every Liberator I saw was above us. The abrupt pitch down from the 150-foot dislodged the gunners in the rear, but they were on their feet again in an instant. The B-24 had pulled straight up and then fell out of the sky. Two dull-light figures popped out of the waist windows, barely 200 or 300 foot above the ground. I learned that they actually survived that fantastic jump between 20 to 50 FW-190s, BF-109s, ME-110s, and JU-88s attacked the formation, causing death and destruction. Buzz and Bear took a hit, but carried on. Cameron recalls, "We saw fighters overshoot us on their pursuit of the bombers ahead, but what could accurately be described as a running fight. We were flying at about 100 feet now because I intended to pull into close formation directly behind and under Colonel Johnson and Brandon to elude the fighters. If we could, we went back down below the level of the scattered treetops. We followed the terrain, once lifting slightly to rise up over a man plowing a field directly in our path. He never left his plow and acted as though American bombers flew directly over his fields every day. But as it turned out, the battle was over for us. But we learned later that the fighting went on for many of the other crews. Some were still being attacked by fighters after they had reached the Mediterranean. By now we had lost track of Henderson and Hill, who had taken a direct route for Malta. It was a long, lonely trip, but they made it. Ed Mitchell, who had been flying on the Susie Q's left wing, pulled off to land in Turkey. Warden Weaver, who was leading the flight behind in Little Abner, was hit very badly over the target and crashed about 40 miles away. Fascinating Witch, flown by Bob Miller and Dexter Hodge, leading the fourth flight, was hit severely. There were gaping holes in the fuselage. On the B-24 was missing a vertical stabilizer. Luckily, 3 engines were spared. Okay. Alright, turn to page 69. This is a wonderful magazine. I'm going to attempt to finish this. Okay, here we go, over here. And they miraculously made it to Malta. Both of their wingmen were lost. Some distance away, Colonel Jim Posey had led the other half of the 44th 21 B-24s on a very accurate strike against Credital Mining Refinery at Brizai, but lost Elmer Reinhardt and a short distance from the target. Despite the losses of performance of Posey's formation, it was one of the few success stories. The greatest success, though, went to the 389th Bomb Group, Colonel Jack Wood and Major Kenneth Fearless Caldwell, who had some very anxious moments then when the formation turned down the wrong valley, but they pulled up and flew on for perhaps 3 to 4 minutes before turning to the right. The 389th started down towards the refinery, which was marked by a great ball of smoke, and split into 3 sections to hit the refinery from 3 different directions. Red Target was completely destroyed, but the success was marred by the loss of 4 liberators shot down. One, flown by Lieutenant Lloyd D. Hughes, suffered ruptured fuel tanks, but despite fuel streaming over the fuselage, he and his co-pilot Ronald H. Helder piloted the B-24 low over the blazing target and got their bombs away. Heat engulfed the bomber and flames licked at its fuselage as the fuel ignited. Hughes' starboard wing dipped and plowed into the ground. Only 2 gunners survived, and the bombardier later died of his burns. Hughes was posthumously awarded the Medal of Honor. Another 389th pilot, Second Lieutenant James F. Garrett, who co-piloted Hitler's Hearst, flown by Captain Mooney of the 567th Squadron, recalls, as we started down and saw the target, Bob Mooney was all excited, and he said to me, "Here it is, with all those guns firing, or get those nose guns firing, Hank." We had 2 50 caliber guns specially mounted in the nose for shooting up the target a little, and mostly to demoralize the ground gunners. I had to toggle switch to fire them, and I flipped it a couple of times and heard them roar. We headed on down a long glide into the target. There was a lot of orange blips appearing from all around the target area. We looked down the barrels of the guns as they were firing at us. Everything was fine, and then suddenly there was a loud bang in the cockpit. It quickly filled with smoke. I flinched away and turned toward my side window. As the smoke cleared, there was a horrible roar from a hole in the windscreen. As I turned toward Mooney, he was leaning back away from the control wheel. His hands were off the wheel and just held in front of him. Blood was running down his face. He wasn't conscious anymore. We were still going down on the target in a shallow dive and maybe 200 feet or so off the ground. I quickly grabbed the wheel and held for the run for a few seconds, and I pulled up on the right side, and we were over the refinery structures a little to the right. I could feel something down the side of my face, and my left arm hurt. I looked down, and I had some blood on myself, too. Charles Garrett, the gunner, got Mooney out and laid him on the flight deck just behind the cockpit. Garrett climbed onto Mooney's seat to help me, but he couldn't do very much. His hands had been hit and were all bloody. He pushed the controls with just the palms of his hands. Spencer, one of the waist gunners, had come forward to help, and he was working over Mooney. Garrett turned to me and said, "Spencer says Mooney is dead." That was a blow, but I had to act tough and say, "Well, okay, let's keep going." Garrett made it to Izmir, Turkey, with Lieutenant Harold James Crew off his wing. On 2nd August, the crews attended a funeral for Mooney. It was at a small cemetery outside Izmir. 7 crews were interred in Turkey, while 19, including Killer Kane, had landed in Cyprus, Sicily, or Malta. Colonels Kane and Leon Johnson were both awarded the Medal of Honor for their leadership. Altogether, 54 B-24Ds were lost at the Plotzi, and 3 more crashed into the sea. Of the 92 that returned to Libya, 55 had varying degrees of battle damage. Only 42% of the plant's refining capacity and 40% of its cracking capacity had been destroyed. They were repaired, and within a month they were operating at pre-mission capacity again. I'll tell you. Ballsy. Absolutely crazy to take a high altitude bomber and do it this way. But man, that's the end of this article. B-24D. Got a few things done this week. despite life trying to get in the way. Let's take a look here. First of all, I broke down and got these, but okay, these are the photo etched ammo belts that are going to go on the waist gun position. Got 2 of those. Alright, and I've started the people position. The waist gunners in. From the weapons to the boxes on the wall. That's where those belts are going to go. They're going to be feeding into the sides of the weapons. Alright. Been working on the outer doors, or windows I should say, that they're going to be opening. The guns are going to be out. These are actually going to be inside here. Just still need to do the decal work on them and put the windows in. Okay, so all the way up to step 7 here. So anyway, so much for that. So you got the rear turret done, got that done, had to people the cockpit here, and found out that I screwed up again. Had to fix it. I got these seats too far back at an angle, whereas pilot's feet didn't quite hit the controls. Ended up breaking this. You get that back in place here. I'd do some carving on the figures so that they could fit down over those photo etched seat belts I've got them sitting on, so you'll never see them. But I know they're there. So I had the seats at too far back of an angle, and their pilot's hand just wasn't quite touching the control here. And his feet just were kind of dangling out in the air, kind of like he had his seat jacked up. But added those extra throttle handles down here really added a nice touch. Had to redo those, so they're sitting up in there nice and neat. They'll be sitting up front. Okay. Other than that, it's been a little frustrating, though. Mostly decal problems. Old decals. So we know how much fun that can be. but it looks like I managed to salvage them. Show you what I've got going here. I've got the inner doors and windows open here with the decals there. The windows in each one here and here. Had troubles with this decal. It fell apart. Managed to salvage it and, well, do all kinds of strange things. Like ages ago I had digitized the decal sheets, so I was able to print out another one, kind of, and lay it over, cut out the portion of it here and lay it over that here, which kind of salvaged it. But it's going to be on the inside, so you're not going to see it. Been dealing with the bombardier here. Of course, had to reposition the seat. And position him in there, get his arms in there to where it kind of looks like he's working on it. Better shot of that there, and we'll kind of dry fit this in here. I'll give you an idea what it's going to look like inside. The salvage decal, kind of give it kind of a weathered look here, kind of beat at the ammo boxes up in here. Now, crew I've been having trouble with, especially in the gunner's tub, which is a step here, because now I've had to pop this guy loose, because I've got the photo etched ammo belts. I'm gonna go up to the ammo boxes on the wall once I get this positioned. So it'll go up back like so on both sides. Oh, bombs. Crew member overboard. Okay, anyway, got him. So he needed to be repositioned anyway. So that's why I had to pop him loose. So anyway, photo etch belts. Lots of fun. And need to position the tub up into here, with the guns out the window. And attach belts to the face of the ammo box, and I've got to give them a proper sag, and so that's what I'm working on here. Almost got them. Got the antenna on here and here. And thought you'd like to take one last look at her before I close her up. Some light down in here. Alright. Got the waist gun. Rear turret. Bomb bay section. Cockpit floor. Bomb bay. Of course, bomb bay. And bombardier. And nose gear. Well, with, I'll show you on this side. And yes, that is the front gear door. On the early models of this, they folded and slid inward and upward. So this is correct for D model. On a later model, I'll say like a J, those are down because they use a different landing gear actuator. They used the Ford actuator, which took the gear doors down and pulled them back up. Okay. Got the glass on both sides. Bomb bay ready. And then glass. Got the, of course, the rear window, ammo box for the waist gunners. Let's see. Hang on. Be a little patient with me here. Alright, that's just a little over 3 times magnification here. I'll show you the ammo belt. I've yet to fold it over on top of the box here, but it's ready to go. It's glued to the front. Sags down and around. Onto this crutch on the side of the gun that the crutch down gunner has. This guy is ready to go. So got his ammo belt ready. Just need to attach it here and of course to the box when it's ready. So got the bombardier section all ready with all of his switches. And the gun mount ready to go. Haven't done the gun mount yet. But bay, you can of course see the wheel and the fender, the oleo strut, and the gear mount itself in front of the well door. Now I still have finally been able to do a little bit something on the B-24. I'm doing a little bit of detailing here. Starting to get the props finished up. Oh, sorry for the floaties here, guys. Starting to do detail work on the engines. Bring her on down here. Arrgh. All 4 props done. They're just waiting to get put on. Okay. Got the major components done here. Let's get down here and take a look-see. Got the wings together. Got the engines in. Still have some more work to do on this one. Yeah. Still need to do a little touch up on the and the de-icing. Okay, here's the other wing and engines. This time I've got a little exhaust goo in there. I had to do a little carving around the nacelle roots here, but on all 4 of them. Got the rear tailplane ready to go together with its de-icing boot. And the 2 uprights ready to be decoupled and put into place. Actually, they'll be going like so. I had to freehand these de-icing boots. And this is the final on the B-24 Pro Modeler 1/48 scale B-24D Liberator by Monogram. This kit is no longer available. And the closest you can get is a 1/32 scale, which is larger by Hobby Boss, and for about 8 times the price that I paid for this one. From what I understand, this one was a collector's item. Alright. Now we're going to drop you down. Hang on. Alright. We're about tabletop level here. Okay. Here we got the tow bar, the tow tractor, 5 of the figures that came with it, There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 more inside the aircraft. Yeah, I've kind of showed you this little guy. And the toolbar that goes with him. The toolbar, excuse me. Okay, let's get this out of the way. Now, without further ado, she is all together. Here we go. She is a big gal. If I can get this down a little bit more. As you know, I had about decal problems with this. Now, I wasn't going to, because I kind of screwed it up. As I had snapped this off and lost it. So I went and found this 0.28 millimeter line and put the rear antenna on. And put the rear dipoles on. Let me up this a little bit. Try to show you inside this turret. But it's not going to. It's okay, I'm going to add photos at the end. Yes, they do turn, all four. The wheels do not. There's 5 figures inside, 1 in here, 2 here, and 2 here. Over 23 inches on the wingspan. Oh, excuse me, 27 inches. That's about 70 centimeters from wingtip to wingtip. And 18 inches to the nose gun, so that's about 46 centimeters long. And 4.5 inches tall, 10, 12, I'll call it about 13 centimeters high. And now for the piece de resistance, as they say. Show you the belly. I'm going to try to show you the belly. Hang on. It's hard to do one-handed here. This is such a big bird. Sorry about the floaties here. You can see the jewels that I added here. And yes, she is a tail dragger. Trying to do a flyover here. But there she is. I do want to thank you for following along. This was a bona fide collector's item, this kit. So, and I'll have to post on where to find her down here at local Veterans Museum. It's posted, it'll be at the Golden Triangle Mall in Denton, Texas. Alright, I'll add photos. Oh, thank you all for subscribing and hanging with me. And this has been one heck of a project. It's huge. Thank you for subscribing and just watching. All your thumbs up, all your comments have been wonderful. It kept me going on this one. Do have yourselves a wonderful day.